What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Keep It Kula Podcast. My name is Jaclyn Kula. Today, with me, writer for Sportsnet, Raptors Republic, and host of the Locked On Raptors podcast. Welcome to the show, Zulfi Sheikh. Thanks for coming on, Zulfi. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jaclyn. Thank you for having me on. Excited to talk Raptors, basketball, free agency, everything in between. Like I said, I am ready to yap with you for this.
I am so excited to just yap about basketball. I've been waiting because a lot of my podcast is a lot of Blue Jays. So I had Keegan Matheson on yesterday just doing Blue Jays talk. So, which I love. I love Jays, but this NBA offseason has been one for the books. Can you tell me a better offseason that the NBA's had since, like, I don't know, 2016 maybe?
Definitely not since 2016. Obviously, if you go in the past, like LeBron's decision, the 2010, 2011, that was a crazy one. Again, yeah, like Kevin Durant joining the Warriors, that was crazy times as well. But this, in terms of just like the landscape of the NBA shifting as drastically as it has in recent memory, this is about the craziest I can remember, especially because there's so much talk now about free agency not being what it once was. And in many ways, it's true. There's not been many crazy signings, but NBA teams find a way to make up for that by making these bonkers trades like we had. So the NBA, like they said, it's the never boring association. It always finds a way.
Let's just jump into up there, Kawhi Leonard jersey right there. I've got that. I've had that jersey since 2018. I've always had it up, but I haven't really had the Leonard showing. I just had Raptors showing. We can have Leonard showing once again because Kawhi Leonard is back with the Raptors. Pinch me, we're not dreaming. Before the trade happened, did you think it was going to happen, or did you think it was like the Giannis rumors or even the Ohtani rumors like in baseball? Like, was it too good to be true almost?
Yeah, see, I take a lot of pride in the fact that I was a believer. Even you could say maybe I was manifesting it to a certain degree, but I was on the radio, I think, the day before the rumors really heated up, and I was talking about how I believed there was real meat on the bone when it came to the plausibility of this happening for a couple of reasons. The fact that, one, Kawhi Leonard has familiarity with the organization and with the Toronto Raptors. He seems to be somebody who values that. That's part of the reason why he left Toronto in the first place, was to go back to his home state. And if he's going to leave that place, I'm assuming he'd want to go to a place where he has some semblance of familiarity. But the other part of it that was probably the biggest thing was, were the Clippers going to be ready to get out of the Kawhi Leonard business? And once that became clear, or at least the reporting said it became clear, then it made a lot of sense for Kawhi to find a new destination, find a team that was willing to offer him the extension that he's looking for. The Raptors seem to be that team among many other teams. But then, again, like I said, the familiarity kind of swung it most in favor for Toronto. The package made sense for the Clippers as well. So I definitely thought there was possibility to it. I believe there was more than just a leverage play, like you said, with those other situations with Ohtani and other like Giannis in the past. So I thought there was really, like, the factors lined up well for it to happen. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it was still crazy that this happened. The narrative behind it, the storybook kind of like feel to it, it going down how it did was incredible for the Raptors.
I got excited early on. I did talk about my podcast how, you have to be careful when you're trading for a guy like Kawhi because he's not the same player as he was 7 years ago, where I'm not willing to give up a Scotty or an RJ Barrett or a CMB. But what ended up happening, and I think a lot of people will disagree actually, but I think you agree with me that this was a great trade on the Raptors' behalf, giving up Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick. It hasn't worked out, the Grady Dick experiment, and BI has been great, but I've never pictured him as someone who's going to lead the team necessarily to a championship. Are you comfortable with this trade package that the Raptors did end up doing?
I think it's a great word you use there, Jaclyn. Comfortable. I am comfortable with what they gave up. Every trade has some level of risk built into it, and this seems to have greater risk to some people than others. But I think it's also a matter of perspective. This Raptors team, this front office, wanted to open up a contention window. And if that is your goal, Kawhi Leonard very emphatically opens that up, like you didn't necessarily have. With all due respect to Brandon Ingram, great player, recouped his value, became an all-star, helped the Raptors get back to the playoffs. I was actually talking to somebody about this on my way here, that I'm not sure if Kawhi Leonard wants to join this team if the Raptors were a play-in team or they didn't make the postseason altogether. I think a big part of that was because they showed what kind of team they were in the playoffs, and Brandon Ingram deserves his credit for that, for being an innings eater in the regular season and helping them get to that point, even though he did kind of tail off towards the end with the injuries and his playoff production kind of dropping there. So I think that part of it is separate, but you kind of see that if the Raptors wanted to get into playoff contention and meet that goal, this is one of the few ways they could have done it. I don't see how you get the caliber of player that Kawhi Leonard is in this market without making a move like this. You can kind of hope and pray in the draft for things like that to continue, but we know that path can be very risky at times, or at least it's hard to find that type of player all the time. Even Scottie Barnes, fantastic player. He's a top 20 minimum player, maybe top 15, but Kawhi Leonard's in a different stratosphere. We're talking about potentially top 5, at worst top 10 because he was all NBA second team. And when it comes to getting those type of guys, you do have to pay some kind of a price. And for the Raptors, you can look at the future first. There is some risk, like you said, because at that point in 2031 and 2033, Kawhi's probably retired. He's into his 40s. Scottie Barnes is into his 30s. Who knows what his situation is looking like? So yes, there is built-in risk. But at the same time, for these next couple of seasons, you kept your first round picks that you can either A, use to draft rookie scale players, or use those to kind of continue building this roster and tweaking around it. So there is some optionality there as well. But like the end all be all, or the TLDR of me yapping here, is that they wanted to get into a window of contention, and they firmly did that by getting Kawhi Leonard.
The Raptors are in a win now mode, and it's really nice to have that where it hasn't felt like that. Even last year, it was exciting for them being in the playoffs, but I couldn't get too excited in a sense, knowing what was on, not just the East, because the East was kind of mid, but knowing what was on the other side with the West. Thinking the Raptors ever playing the Thunder or the Spurs, that never really sat right with me of actually being a potential contender. As much as I love Scottie, and B.I. was such a joy to have for a short time in Toronto, I never felt that they can get over that hump. But now with Kawhi, despite his age and maybe past of injuries, they're a contender again. The East is a different story, which we will talk about the Celtics very soon, of course. But looking at the Knicks, they just lost Robinson, who was their biggest, defender, rebounder. I think the Knicks might be a one-hit wonder. That's another story there. But looking at the Raptors now, they're going to contend in the East. And I think this was the right move. I do want to talk about concerns about injuries. Kawhi has had a bit of a history of injuries. Is that something that you're concerned about heading into this year, considering what they essentially did give up for him, of him actually playing 50-plus games?
Yeah, look, I think it's a fair question, and for many people, it is the question when it surrounds this whole situation about, like, can Kawhi Leonard stay healthy? And I'm not going to tell people those concerns are overblown, because he does have a history when it comes to injuries. But the way I look at it, basically, since before these injuries started for Kawhi Leonard, to me at least, this is the healthiest he's looked, because 2 years ago, he missed the first 35 games of that season, and then he came back from injury. Since then, based on my math, and don't trust my math ever, he's played in about 80% of games, which is about as much as you can ask for from a healthy Kawhi Leonard. 2 years ago, when the Clippers were in the playoffs against the Denver Nuggets in that first round, he played all 7 games. He was there averaging basically 40 minutes a game for that series as well. So since he's returned from that injury, he has been about as healthy as you can ask out of Kawhi Leonard. He played 65 games last season, which is one of the healthiest seasons of his career. As far as recent history goes, he seems to have found this momentum and this rhythm in terms of staying on the court. Knock on wood, because, again, he does have a history of injuries, and we don't know how that situation can go. But if you're talking about a guy, at least this year, who is looking to get this max extension from the Raptors, I'm assuming they're going to give it to him before we even get to the court. But, like, he's going to have something to prove this season as well, especially the first year after the trade. I expect him to be playing a lot. And the name that everyone's going to keep bringing up in this situation is Alex McKechnie, the head of the Raptors training staff. He is a guy that worked with Kawhi Leonard very closely last time. He is revered not just around the NBA, but around professional sports for what he does with athletes and how he's able to take care of them. And I think it goes without saying that part of the reason why Kawhi Leonard probably wanted to come back to the Raptors is because he knows he gets to work with a guy like Alex again, gets to take care of his body the right way. And the Raptors have the history, they have the familiarity of working with Kawhi Leonard and navigating his injuries. The phrase load management basically started with Kawhi Leonard in Toronto, and we've seen how it's kind of been taken over by many other teams and superstars. The Raptors know how to do this thing with him. If there's a front office and an organization I trust to find the right balance for Kawhi Leonard to play and be ready for the playoffs, it's the Toronto Raptors. Even, again, while admitting there are risks involved, but based on recent history and the Raptors' history with him, I'm confident.
Yeah, Zulfi, you make a great point with Alex, because you look at this team, it's so different from 2019. Everyone's gone. Masai's gone, Nick Nurse is gone. It's a totally different team, but there is that one piece of familiarity right there with the trading system, and then also just understanding Kawhi of load management, and just how the city adores this guy. Despite him leaving, as I said before, I still wrap that Kawhi jersey. This city adores Kawhi. So just the fact that there is something that was still missing for him, and there was that regret of being like, oh, you know what, I messed up. We saw that this week with Bo Bichette returning against the Jays, where the emotions were there and you can feel there's some regret. Obviously, there was a lot more that happened the business side that we will never fully understand, but a lot of players, it seems like they miss this city. They miss the fan base. They miss the organization. So I think this was the right move. And just for fan base reasons, it was the perfect move. We need a superstar. Scottie is becoming a superstar, no question about that. But we need a guy who's already proven himself. And Kawhi did that already in San Antonio and then did it, obviously, in Toronto. Looking back at that trade in 2018 between DeMar and Kawhi, what shocked you more, that trade or this trade now?
That's a great question. I think at the time I'd obviously, like back then I would say that trade. Now I would say this one. Yeah. I think just like, especially in today's NBA landscape, you don't see players kind of do what Kawhi just did here, is go back to a situation. I think you kind of had this idea of like, we're going to move forward. We're going to not look back into the past. We're not going to dwell on things, especially in this superstar driven parody era, whatever you want to call it. I think the trade in 2018 obviously was a massive shock. But given Kawhi Leonard's situation then and how it was very publicly devolving between him and the San Antonio Spurs, I think Tony Parker at the time had made comments that seemed to have rubbed Kawhi's camp the wrong way. He had only played 9 games that season. It kind of felt like there was an end coming for their situation. And for the Raptors, like, yes, again, the shock of it trading away DeMar DeRozan, franchise icon, but in the sense that like they were continuously running into this LeBron wall, and there was obviously something that had to be done. Otherwise, they just weren't going to get over that hump. Even ironically, LeBron left to go to the Lakers that year. But at the time, it's again, we don't have an answer to LeBron James. We're a perennial playoff team. We're one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Like, you knew something was going to happen for that team, right? This Raptors team, they just come off a plucky, scrappy effort against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. You have you have Brandon Ingram under contract for at least the next season before a player option. Scottie Barnes is locked up. This core seems to be there. The young guys are developing. You draft 2 more young guys as well. Like, you could have very much gone into this season saying, you know what, internal development, continuity, that's what we trust. We're going to build this thing gradually and take it step by step. And that would have been totally fine. I think a lot of people would have been fine with that for the Raptors. But the fact that they wanted to springboard themselves and the fact that they saw the Eastern Conference as a conference that was ripe for the taking, I think that shocks me in the sense that, like, you don't always see teams make drastic moves like that, especially, again, the Raptors front office. The last couple of years, they've kind of admitted we've kind of stuck to our core principles maybe longer than we should have with the Pascal situation, the Fred VanVleet situation. Like, they kind of bought into that core so deeply that they didn't know when it was time to cut bait. And maybe they learned from that and they decided we're not going to make that same mistake again. But even then, it's still surprising given what this front office's history is. So I think given the context around it overall, this trade here now for Kawhi Leonard does surprise me more.
Yeah, I would have never guessed a year ago that this would ever, like, I'm still processing, and I think every single person in Toronto is processing it, or just NBA wise, is that the fact, as you said, people don't do this. LeBron did it, but that was a very different circumstance, you know?
It was actually his hometown. Like, he went back to Cleveland. Kawhi, like, we call it his home, but his home is the place he just left.
Yeah, he played it for a year, won the championship, and left. He wanted to go home and play in LA. Like, you can't hate the guy for doing that. LeBron, you know, he became this villain in Cleveland for leaving them, but then he went back, won them the chip with a bit of like a scrappy team as well. But it's true, like, Kawhi had there was no reason for him to come back. Maybe because Kawhi and Dine might still be up in the air for him, and just maybe he'll know he's royalty here, and LA doesn't. You know, Clippers are always Lakers' little brother, and maybe that played a factor of some sort, or there's a million other reasons that we don't know why. But he wanted to be here, and free agents may want to be here too. Someone I want to mention that I talked about a second ago was DeMar DeRozan. He wants out of Sacramento. I feel like everyone wants him to come back. Would it actually make sense, though, for the structure that the Raptors are building for DeRozan to come back on like a 1 or 2 year deal?
Yeah, look, I stand by the fact that DeMar DeRozan is my favorite Raptor of all time. I am a big fan of his. I'll always say he was the player that actually chose this city more than just about anyone else. And I always loved DeMar DeRozan for that. I find it to be not the cleanest fit having DeMar DeRozan back on this team. You can even just talk about like the optics or the background behind it about like Are you going to play second fiddle to Kawhi Leonard and this team, the guy that you were dumped for 7 years ago? Maybe DeMar just really wants to be back with the city. Kyle Lowry's reportedly getting his jersey retired this season. He's going to be there to retire as a Raptor. Maybe DeMar wants to be around for the fanfare of Kyle being celebrated his best friend. But I just find this Raptors team, especially when it comes to their bench, they have talked ad nauseum, Bobby Webster has, about two-way players. He wants to have guys who can come in, win their minutes defensively, and he's willing to let those guys go through the growing pains, learn their roles offensively, and kind of develop there. DeMar DeRozan could be an excellent scoring option off the bench in theory. He can come and maybe give you 18 points per game, play generally most games he stays healthy. He's not a guy who's been injured much throughout his career. And I understand that, but is this front office or is Darko Rakovic willing to do that at the sacrifice of Jamal Shead getting opportunities to shoot the ball, Jacoby Walter, again, CMB getting opportunities to do things offensively? He could be a guy who might actually lead this team in scoring off the bench if CMB kind of has things click right for him offensively this season. I love the idea in theory. I love the nostalgia and romanticism of it. I just don't know if in the basketball sense, in terms of what this Raptors team is trying to develop and has a vision for, that DeMar DeRozan necessarily fits in. If it happened, I wouldn't be out there knocking it, that's for sure. I just don't know if that's what they want.
Yeah, it would be pretty crazy for fanfare showing up to a game with Kyle Lowry's jersey being retired, Kawhi on the Raptors, and DeRozan on the Raptors. That would be some sort of crazy parallel universe that we're in. So with the Kyle Lowry announcement of him signing one day, he then went to Instagram. Obviously, you saw his story being like, wait for me to report something. Is there any possibility he stays 1 year and he plays this season? He kind of has like a Garrett Temple role as like a veteran on the bench, or is it more of like it's a 1 day jersey up?
Yeah, look, I will never say never, especially when it comes to Kyle Lowry. I feel like this dude probably is just dying for more opportunities to be on a championship level team and do his thing. He is a bulldog when it comes to being a competitor. He loves basketball. He's clearly a junkie. But at the same time, I think Kyle Lowry, if he was miffed about anything with the media, I think it's more so just him not being able to be the one to announce it. Yeah. If I had to guess, he's going to just sign the ceremonial 1 day with the Raptors and retire a Raptor, and that's what he deserves. He deserves to be celebrated by this organization and by this fan base, and I'm sure fans are going to show out to do exactly that. I would love for him to sign the 1 year. I want it to happen just from a mentorship perspective. Look, Kyle Lowry's set up very well. He's made a lot of money in his career. His kids are older now. I'm sure he's watching them kind of start their basketball journeys as well. I'm pretty sure he's going to be part of the Amazon Prime broadcast moving forward in some capacity. He's got things to be doing. So if he's willing to leave all that to spend a year on the Raptors bench, great. I would love for it to happen. I just don't know if that's where his heart wants to be after 20 years in the NBA and doing this.
My God, it's crazy to think of. The day Lowry retires is the day where we will all feel old, unfortunately. It's like LeBron is still kicking it somehow, but LeBron has to call it a career soon. Looking at the greatest Raptors, there's just this conversation always. And I've always said Kawhi deserves to be in that conversation for what he did for that 1 year. Give me your top four. Your top four Raptors of all time.
Top four Raptors of all time. Okay. This is a tough question because, the start is easy for me. Kyle Lowry is number one. He's the greatest Raptor of all time. This guy isn't my favorite Raptor, but for the influence and the impact and everything that he did, Vince Carter, I think, does deserve to be number two in terms of just where the Raptors were at the time. They were down in the dumps essentially, and he kind of revitalized the franchise. That seemed to be, by some people's accounts, almost at the risk of folding, like the Vancouver Grizzlies were, and he kind of stopped that from happening. Again, I wasn't really around to know how true that was, but I'm sure most fans would probably agree with that sentiment. After that, again, personally, I go DeMar DeRozan. He's my third greatest Raptor of all time. I will always say it that he chose this franchise more than anyone. It gets really tricky for me after that. I've gone so back and forth. I can very much see a case for Kawhi Leonard as the fourth greatest Raptor of all time. Again, short peak, but now maybe that's going to change very quickly because he's back with the Raptors. He can change that. It's no longer a 1 year wonder when it comes with his time with the Toronto Raptors. For me, at the fourth spot, I could see him. Pascal Siakam has a great argument. One of the greatest development stories of all time, from going undrafted to having the impact that he did with the Raptors, not just with the championship run, but even after that, I think is awesome. And I will always throw his name into this conversation. It's Chris Bosh. I know people don't like to think of him, especially the fact that he went to the Miami Heat to join LeBron and Wade and form that big three. He won a championship there and whatnot. But again, during those really dark times, especially post-Vince, Chris Bosh was an all-star. He was doing stuff for this Raptors team that no one else at the time was even thinking about. While this team was maybe at one of its lowest points ever, he carried the franchise. He was basically the only thing worth cheering for during those times. And respectfully, when he left, I didn't necessarily blame him, given where the Raptors were. And he got the opportunity to go join LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and do what he did there. Can I see a lot of people not wanting to throw Chris Bosh in the mix for that reason? Sure, but like you can use the same argument with Vince Carter and him leaving the team the way he did and the optics behind that. So to my long-winded answer, I'll probably end up going a Kyle, Vince, DeMar, and then I'll give Kawhi the fourth spot just because, again, he's now back, so he's going to be able to add to that legacy. And that one-year run was one of the most special one-year runs I've seen from a player, especially in the playoffs.
It's a great list. You know, I might put Kawhi over DeRozan. As much as I love DeRozan and what he did for the city, I think the championship brings him up. Carter, I would still like. Lowry 100% is number one. He'll go down as the greatest Raptor of all time just for all those seasons, everything he's done here. And then Carter for kind of shaping what the Raptors were. You make a great argument for Bosh because they were in these dark days post the McGrady and then Carter era of really kind of having some sort of respect in basketball for Toronto. But I think I put Kawhi over DeRozan just because he won. If the Raptors can go on a run again this year and win the chip, you got to put Kawhi over Lowry. Is that a discussion you would have there? If Kawhi wins Finals MVP this year, is that something you would think of then?
I will accept the argument and the conversation to be had about it. For me, why I will always, unless again things change very drastically and Kawhi wins multiple championships, I will always have Kyle Lowry as the greatest Raptor of all time because to me, he was not just their on-court leader, he was the Raptors' spiritual leader. Like he represented what Toronto was as a basketball market. Like Kyle Lowry is not the greatest athlete of all time. He's not the fastest. He's not the strongest. Most times on the court, he's the smallest. But he was arguably making the biggest impact every single night. Even on nights where he went 1 of 10 from the field, he was finding a way to impact the game, whether that's by getting a stop, diving for a loose ball, taking charges like we all remember him for. And I think that spoke to Toronto as a basketball market. We felt like underdogs. We felt like we didn't get respect. Again, before LeBron and Drake were friends and maybe are not friends anymore. I don't know what's going on with their situation, but before that happened, LeBron didn't really mess with Toronto the way he did during those years. The Raptors were kind of a laughingstock at the time, especially, again, towards the end of the Chris Bosh era and coming out of it when DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry picked up the pieces. Like, this market wasn't viewed with all that much respect or wasn't revered by the rest of the NBA before We the North happened. Right, so I think because Kyle Lowry led that effort, he puffed his chest out. It kind of gave the fan base, it gave the city the confidence to do it as well and say that we are a basketball market. We should be respected. I think Masai Ujiri said that as well, like, believe in yourself, right? And Kyle Lowry made it possible for this franchise to believe in itself by being that player day in and day out and consistently putting in that work ethic. The longevity of it, the accolades, the accomplishments, and obviously being a part of that championship run, to me at least, make him the greatest Raptor of all time. Again, I will let people broach the conversation if Kawhi can do it again, especially without Kyle. It's a very good argument for Kawhi's case, but I take the longevity and the overall impact of Kyle's career with the Raptors into it. But again, like if he does it multiple times, if Kawhi can give this team like 2 more chips, well then yes, you got to have that conversation.
Honestly, that was a great point you just made. I have goosebumps from that speech you just made on Lowry. That was amazing, Zulfi. But yeah, you know what? One more chip for Kawhi, I would probably put him at 2. I think I might put Lowry still at 1. Kawhi, as you said before, Kawhi wins 2 more chips. You can't.
Yeah, really it's hard to argue that. Yeah.
I don't think you can at all. You tweeted this out a couple days ago about 2026 summer in Toronto. Kawhi Leonard back with the Raptors. McKenna at 1. Tempo having an amazing season. Canada makes round of 16. Blue Jays are still doing Looney Dog nights. It's an absolute vibe. What is number 1 right now for Toronto? Because we are in the best timeline for Toronto sports.
Yeah, like I'm not even the biggest footy guy, but again, if I'm looking at it objectively, I think I kind of have to go Canada doing what it is at the FIFA World Cup, like the Men's World Cup, that is, just because like how much it unites a nation. I think the biggest thing I love about when sports in this country or the city are doing well, when it gets the rest of Canada involved, again, at least getting McKenna is fantastic, but we have to see what kind of player he actually ends up being at the NHL level. And also, the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't loved by Edmonton, loved by Vancouver, et cetera, et cetera. When the
Montreal.
Raptors went on that 20... Yeah, exactly. When the Raptors went on that championship run, one of the coolest things was just how the rest of the country was also into it. I remember, I think it was during Game 1 or Game 2, I was on a camping trip out in the middle of nowhere, and I had to watch the first game on my phone on like Google, just refreshing, and I'm like, I can't do this again. This is insane. So I went to the most random bar in the middle of nowhere, just praying that they'd have the game on, and everyone there was watching it, even though I had zero hope that it would actually happen. Like, when those moments happen, it unites this country. And right now, how Canada has united for this soccer team, and how they're kind of like rallying around everything that's happened, from the injuries leading in with Davies, from Ismail Kone going out the way that he did, and for them to continue making history and fighting and scrapping. Jesse Marsh said it. They're Canadian heroes. I know some people were like, maybe that's premature. I don't care. I think he's right. I think the way they fought and scrapped and gone to this point, and the furthest they ever had in this tournament, it's united everyone. The other stuff is fun, and I'm sorry to Blue Jays fans. I was just making a joke about the Looney Dog things. I kind of like, in the spur of it, I did kind of forget it is their 50th season, so that is something to worth celebrating and give nostalgia for. But look,
Looney
the joke
Dog
was
Nights
there.
though deserve their own
They're
tweet. Looney Dog Nights are the best. Yeah. Looking at it for me, I have been an avid soccer hater like my whole life. Fair. I never liked it. I've been that person where it's like, you like soccer, really? I have been loving the World Cup. I'm taking back all those negative things I said about soccer. I never gave it a proper chance. That was my thing. Like, I just never gave it a chance. So I said it sucked because I was just being annoying. It has been fantastic, and I am counting down the seconds for Canada to play tomorrow. I am waiting for this match. I am so excited. I want to get a Jonathan David jersey. Like, I am so locked in. So I think I don't think anything can compare to what, as you said before, this is all of the nation. A lot of my friends are soccer fans, and I'm not. And I asked them, like, how do you explain what the World Cup is? And they're saying it's like the Super Bowl every single day. Every day is a Super Bowl. And like, Ronaldo was in Toronto yesterday playing a match. Like, how do you, like, to really understand that is absolutely absurd of just what Toronto's doing. And it's just so fun. Everything is just working out for Toronto sports. Despite the Jays not being great, it's still fun. Rogers Center is still fun. Yeah. Looney Dogs are still happening. The vibes are still incredible. Every night's a sold out game, right? This McKenna vibes are incredible. Raptors now hitting Kawhi is absurd. Mabry scoring 53 last week. It's like, how do you describe this to someone who doesn't like sports? I hope all of Toronto is jumping on some sort of bandwagon, whether it be the Leafs or the Raptors or just soccer. It has been fantastic, and I think I 100% agree with you that the World Cup is bigger than ever, and I'm gonna start watching soccer now. Like, this made me a soccer fan. This World Cup is making me a soccer fan, so I have to give it to all my soccer listeners. I don't think there's many because I never talk about it. I'm sorry. This is my apology to all of you guys, but yeah, it's been amazing. Has there been a match that you just like it's like locked in your brain from so far in this tournament, like not Canada even? Yeah,
like I've tuned in for bits and pieces, and kind of like as we've gotten closer to the knockout rounds and into the knockout rounds, I really locked in for it. But I think it was that Algeria-Austria match to get into the knockout stage, if I remember correctly, where basically if they both tied, they were both going to advance into the knockout rounds. And by the 60th or like 70th minute, it almost felt like they had come to a truce where they were going to, just like, you know what, we're fine with the tie, let's both go into it. And then I believe Algeria scores late, and all of a sudden everyone's shell-shocked. Like, what just happened? Australia is no longer going to advance to the knockout round. And then I want to say in extra time, Algeria then ties it and sends it basically to a tie, and everyone's still losing their minds over what's about to happen. And I don't remember exactly how the game ultimately wound up finishing, other than the fact that Algeria won and advanced, and Austria fans were completely, again, shell-shocked that they're no longer advancing. But the fact that, like, it almost felt like these teams were in a truce, and then we're basically going bit for bit at each other's necks in those last couple of minutes, it was just so much drama, the theatrics of it, the fanfare around it. It was one of the craziest endings to a sporting event I've ever seen. And that's what the World Cup does. It just lends itself so well to these kinds of moments. So that game to me is going to be stuck with me for a while, just because of like the different, like, I guess, machinations at the end there of just like, oh, you know what, maybe a truce is okay for us. Maybe a tie is fine. And then both teams saying, screw it, no, we're going to try to beat each other.
Both backstabbing each other at the same time. last night's Portugal-Croatia was crazy to me. Just every call, all the offside calls and all that stuff, and Ronaldo with the penalty kick, and it was just, and that being here, and Drake was there, SGA was there, McKenna was there. Just, it was so cool. But yeah, it's been a great series. I want to move on to some of the other NBA offseason moves because, as I said before, this has been one of the craziest offseasons we have ever seen. I got to start off with Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown from the Celtics traded to the 76ers for Paul George and some picks. Is this one of the worst trades that you'll see in sports?
It's got to be up there in terms of most puzzling trades. I think I'm not going to be the one to make the argument, but if somebody wants to make the argument that at least for the regular season, Paul George fits into what type of scheme the Celtics want to play. They like to shoot a lot of threes. He is still, maybe you could even argue, a better, like a craftier defender than Jaylen Brown, especially if Paul George can stay healthy. But when it comes to just the optics around it all, one, Paul George is, I believe, 7 years older. He's making less than Jaylen Brown, but his money isn't great, even though it's on a shorter term. But you just significantly reduced the ceiling of what the Celtics team is. And to me, it felt like a very financially driven move. I don't even want to get into the whole analytics conversation around Jaylen Brown right now and what people seem to think about that. I mean, I'll talk about it if we want to, but I just think that's a bit overblown in terms of like how he's not the best analytics player. He finished sixth in MVP voting. He was clearly very good at basketball last season and came off with one of the best seasons of his career for a team that very much overachieved and was a second seed in the Eastern Conference. So I think at the end of the day, when you give up that player, you need to get maximum value out of it, like bar none, especially while he's in his prime. And the Celtics very much did not do that. It felt like they were not moving from a position of leverage here, a position of strength. And who knows why? We don't know the background of how the situation devolved entirely. But yeah, a 36-year-old Paul George and a couple of picks isn't the type of return you want to get for a guy who was in MVP talks.
I was mind blown. Just also with Philly, somewhat of a rivalry. Boston, Philly play each other in the playoffs. Division. Yeah, same division. It's like, I don't know. I guess it's like if the Giants would have traded Saquon Barkley to the Eagles instead of Saquon Barkley just leaving the Giants to go to the Eagles.
Yeah, for sure.
It would have been like that. That's just my because I'm a Giants fan. That's what I can think of now. But sending them to Philly, already a really great team who beat you in the playoffs. Shockingly came back from that deficit, trading him to that team that could be very good. So then bringing Paul George, who is ancient now, with a couple picks, that is bizarre to me. Like, man, they must have hated Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown must have some crazy beef. We know that there is something going on behind the scenes. Many speculations that Jason Tatum just really did not like Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown did not like Jason Tatum, and that whole organization did not work. But how do you make a team in your division so much better? Send him to the West. Why you couldn't get some sort of package to send him to the West? Like, I don't understand what the Celtics are doing. Bill Simmons obviously is like a huge Celtics fan, and his reaction is so priceless. Like, free plug, I guess, for Simmons, but like, you have to, like, if you haven't listened to that podcast, it is hilarious. It is so shocking. If I was a Philly fan, I'd be over the moon. This would be the greatest day of my life. So. Yeah. It's so mind-blowing, but it's somehow not even one of the bigger stories because LeBron is leaving LA. And he can go wherever he wants to. And Rich Paul came out with the list that, I don't know how much I believe this list, but his list is 76ers, Knicks, Cavs, T-Wolves, Nuggets, Heat, Warriors, Celtics, Spurs, and Mavs. Raptors are not on that. Where's the best fit for LeBron?
That's a great question, and I think it's interesting because, like, the special thing about LeBron is you can make a case for him fitting just about anywhere and it making sense because even at his advanced age, I think he's like 41, 42, like he was still a very quality player. And again, you can get into the analytics and how maybe the Lakers minutes weren't as great when he was on, but he was very productive. He was still giving you over 20 points, something like 7 or 8 rebounds and assists. So, like, he can scale up and scale down. That's the brilliance of LeBron James. He knows how to play different roles and do different things on a basketball court. Like, I thought the idea of him with Stephen Curry on the Warriors seemed to make a lot of sense. I'm pretty sure on that, like, bubble thing that Rich Paul had, I didn't see the Warriors there, but he had brought it up before. So maybe they're not in the conversation as much. Minnesota, to me, is fascinating because this new backcourt with LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards, LeBron James kind of fitting in the middle there could be a lot of fun. I don't know how much credence, like Denver, how much clout Denver's been given in this whole situation, but like that to me is just interesting because like Jokic and LeBron are two of the best passers of this generation, probably of all time. And seeing those guys together could lead to a lot of some fun stuff for a team, but overall fit, like, maybe I'm just, again, being romantic and going to nostalgia, and it's kind of boring, but, like, him on Cleveland, to me, is a lot of fun and makes sense based on, like, where they're at. They weren't able to get over the hump against the Knicks in the conference finals. One of the weaker positions for them is that wing area. LeBron's more of a forward now, but if you have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen kind of manning the front court, you have Donovan Mitchell, James Harden doing what they do in the backcourt. LeBron can be the perfect kind of plug-and-play glue guy of sorts, kind of connecting it all together. We know James Harden can be overburdened as a playmaker at times. We damn sure know Donovan Mitchell wasn't able to handle the playmaking load without James Harden on the floor, especially during the playoffs. So LeBron James could alleviate a lot of that pressure from those guys. Obviously, there's the storylines of it about him going back to his hometown once again, hopefully getting them over the hump once again. We've seen the story before, but like doing it again, ending his career where it started. I think there's a lot of narrative stuff there, and I'm sure he still has so much infrastructure set up in Cleveland for him to make the move very easily without it being an issue at all. So to me, if I was looking at it from like a basketball perspective and like, again, even some of the storylines, I think Cleveland makes the most sense. But it's hard because, like I said, he can fit just about anywhere.
Yeah, with Cleveland, as romantic as that would be, I can't do another LeBron toe. I
Yeah.
can't. I can't have that again where LeBron just kills all of the Raptors' dreams. We did that throughout the 2010s. It's enough.
I would like LeBron toe if it's for the Raptors. I'm just putting that out there. I don't think he'll ever do it. And again, like I made the joke, like, hey,
Let's talk
Toronto
about
has
that.
golf courses. They have golf courses here if LeBron, that's what he's worried about. I live near like 6 virtual golf simulators as well. Like there's plenty of those. So like, hey, LeBron, like if you patch things up with Drake, like I'm sure you can have a fun time here.
Listen, LeBron used to come here in the summer all the time. People used to
Yeah.
see him in Yorkville every summer.
He loves Caravana.
Yeah, listen, LeBron, please. LeBron, Kawhi, Scotty, maybe some other additions, CMB, like whoever needs to go, we'll take LeBron. I see that. I like, as you said before, like it kind of makes sense in a weird way. It makes sense for LeBron to come here, right? Maybe he won't want to be here in the winter time, which is a different story, but he was in Cleveland, which isn't that much
It's not
better.
like Cleveland's much better.
Yeah, it's not like Cleveland's so beautiful with palm trees. So there is an argument for LeBron to come here, team up with Kawhi, Scotty, build something special here. That would absolutely break the internet, I think. I think Twitter would just crash forever. I think the city of Toronto, like if Canada somehow wins tomorrow and LeBron signs with the Raptors, I would stay in my house. Or like you either go outside or you stay put in your house and like just watch from afar because of how crazy it will be. From a different perspective of like not a homer, I think the Timberwolves would make the most sense. Like they're a much smaller team right now, getting rid of Naz and Julius Randle. They're looking for a piece there. Teaming up with LaMelo and Ant could be great. Also just as that veteran piece with these two wild guys, I'll put nicely about LaMelo and Ant, and then Rudy Gobert as well. I could see LeBron being on Minnesota. But if he does want to stay in California, then Golden State would make sense. And if we get to see Steph Curry and LeBron play basketball together, it's a win. It's always a win.
Very cool.
Yeah, it'll be very cool. So my last question then here is, who is winning the offseason so far?
That is a tough question. It's actually funny. I'm in the middle of writing like a free agency winners and losers thing, and
Perfect.
yeah, perfect timing. And like I struggle with that because again, like free agency is so different now in the sense that like it's not just a period of signing players. It's when all these crazy trades and moves are happening. To me, like I know we did talk about it, but Philadelphia has to be up there in the conversation for one of the biggest winners. They continued to keep this contention window open around Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. And the reason why I love this move for Jaylen Brown is I don't think this is a Joel Embiid move. I think this is a Tyrese Maxey move. I think they're building around Tyrese Maxey as their floor general and their guy of the future to build with Jaylen Brown. They're on much similar timelines compared to Joel Embiid, who's kind of on the tail end of his career, especially health-wise. We know his situation is always up and down. You had those guys. VJ Edgecombe, obviously, great rookie last season. He'll be continuing doing his thing. Many people think they stole LeBaron Philon at 22 in the draft, so he could be an interesting piece off the bench. But some of the other moves they made as well, like you lose Quentin Grimes, you bring in Anthony Simons, who should be a great bench scorer for this team. He was basically a 20-point-per-game guy all his years in Portland. Dean Wade, I believe, is going to be the fifth starter on this team next to those four guys I mentioned. If you were a Raptors fan and you saw the Cavaliers series, Dean Wade made life hell for Brandon Ingram at times. And some of that's on Brandon as well, but Dean Wade is a great defender at that position. The guy needs to shoot when he's open because he's getting opportunities to, and he doesn't love to do it unless he's wide open. But if he can do that for the Sixers team, I think he provides great spacing. He can take some of these defensive assignments next to Jaylen Brown, so he'll be interesting there as well. So the Sixers made moves not just trading for Jaylen Brown, but obviously that's a big part of it as well. So to me, they're one of the biggest winners. And the Raptors, you can throw them in there as well. There's a couple teams I look at that made these marginal moves to improve, but I think Philly basically just completely revamped themselves in a way that keeps them relevant in the Eastern Conference. Because, again, if you looked at the last couple weeks and what had happened, Miami gets Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? Like, they have to obviously flush out that roster, but you think they're going to be taking a couple steps up. You obviously have the Knicks still there. The Cavaliers, I'm assuming, are maybe one move away from staying within that tier as well. The Pistons were the number one seed, and you throw the Raptors in there. Like, Philly, in that sense, was kind of falling behind a little bit from some of these other teams. But you make this move, and all of a sudden, you're basically back at the top with the Raptors, I would say, in that second tier. And you don't have that unless you make the moves that you do for not just Jaylen Brown, but those signings as well. I hate saying it as a known Philadelphia hater, as a Raptors fan, and obviously I'm sure Philly got a lot of nightmares seeing Kawhi Leonard is back in the Eastern Conference. But look, they did some good work getting their team the way they did.
Oh, that shot over Embiid 7 years ago will forever be playing in our minds. It is the greatest moment of basketball history. Zulfi, thank you so much for this. Had a fantastic time talking about basketball. Your insight has been amazing. Really made me think a lot about Kyle Lowry and just like the player he is, and also DeRozan, and looking at the Mount Rushmore eventually the Raptors. Make a great argument for LeBron coming to Toronto and bringing LeBron to here instead of terrorizing this city for another 5+ years. But yeah, thank you for all this, and I had a great time.
Thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed yapping with you, whether it was about the Raptors, just Canada soccer, everything in between. It was a lot of fun, and I'll be happy to join you whenever again.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Follow Zulfi. I will put everything down in the description. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.